What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am so excited for today's video. We are going to take a flow limitation and say goodbye to it. All right, guys, so today we are here with hashtag Dr. Flow, the man, ready to give us a flow injection of how we can overcome the 30-day flow run duration. So Serge has come up with a pattern to overcome flow's lack of state machine and lack of ability to run over 30 days. And so he, the man, has agreed to come after work and hang out with me on video here and show you guys what is state machine, what does that mean, how does one work, and then he's going to actually do a demo with us to kind of show us how it actually all works. And I guess he's actually got a couple different methodologies as well, you said, right, Serge?
Exactly. I will illustrate that.
Okay.
We have two video, right? So we'll do that in two steps, right? In two shots.
Yeah, today is a lot of talking and a lot of theory and some slides to really introduce what is state machine, right? And a little bit of demo. Mm-hmm. And then in the second video, what we're going to do is we're going to bring it all together, and we're actually going to have Serge build a state machine pattern from scratch with you so that you can use this in your jobs, with your customers, in your environment, wherever you may need it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and let Serge introduce himself. I know I haven't done that yet. I'm not being rude. I know he's prepared to intro himself. So Serge, I'm going to kick it off to you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then go ahead and jump into your presentation and take it away, man.
Yeah, so I'm Serge Luca, and my friend called me Dr. Flow, and I'm an MVP in Office 365 and also an MVP in a business application, more specifically Flow. I really love Microsoft Flow, and I guess you will as well.
Yeah.
And I'm based in Belgium, so I'm based in Brussels more specifically, right? So I'm an architect, I'm a dev and also an architect. So I do a little bit of bullshit as well.
Just barely. You're not in marketing, so very little bullshit.
Just a little bit bullshit, yes. But what I'm going to show you is not bullshit. That's real stuff.
There you go.
This can save your life. Do not forget that. It saved my life several times, so it should save
your life.
My life.
Someone put a gun against his head and was like, build a flow state machine pattern. Exactly. He's like, all right.
As a business consultant. Okay. And I'm very polite here.
Yes.
Right? Do you want me to show you something, or?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go ahead and jump into the slides and check out your intro slide, and then I know you have a bunch of goodness to share with us.
Yes, let me share this slide. So as John mentioned, we're going to talk about terrible limitation that we have in Flow. We all love Flow, but there are a few limitations, and I will show you how to fix that. That's the fact that we cannot have flows or workflows running for more than 30 days. And also, we cannot have state machine with Microsoft Flow. So we have to discuss about why we need state machine and how to do that with Flow, because there are actually several possibilities to do state machine in Flow. But let's jump to some limitation. So these are the most, or I would say the worst limitation in Flow. And the good news is, of course, we have solution for that. The first two limitations are that a flow duration is maximum 30 days. So after 30 days, your flow stop running. Most of the time, 30 days is good enough. Most of the time, you create a document, you ask someone to approve the document, etc. Most people approve in less than 30 days. But there are some cases. Sorry?
You would hope so. Otherwise, that's a long approval process.
Yeah, but sometimes you can work on big things, like, for instance, you create a book, and you have several people working together on this book. There are different chapters, different authors, and it might take months, weeks, or sometimes years to complete the book, right? So you are in a very long approval process. So, and in flow, the approval process can take up to 30 days. So after 30 days, the approval stops as well. Not just the flow, but also the approval. Okay, this will improve. I know that the flow team is working on it. But in the meantime, we need to find a solution for this kind of things. Also, in a flow, you have only 250 action per flow. And
which we don't see many people run into that limitation. I feel like that's least troublesome of the limitations, probably.
Yes,
Is that one.
actually, most flows are, I would say, small flows. They're very convenient flow. They increase productivity. But in some cases, you need to create bigger flow. I will show you a few examples. Okay, then you need to find a solution. In this case, that's very easy. And also, we need to discuss the state machine. So why do we need a state machine? Because there's no state machine by default in Flow. At least in the Flow designer, there's no state machine, but there are ways to fix that. So to fix the 30 days flow duration, you can follow a pattern that I've defined last year, which is the controller pattern. That's the one I will illustrate in this session, in this video, and in the next video. Same for the approval duration. You want to use more than 250 action in your flow, you need to split your flow in several flow. We call that, you need to create nested flow. So we have an action in flow called the HTTP action, which allows you to call a flow from another flow. And for your information, this HTTP action requires premium license. That's important, right?
That's a newer development, but that is true.
That is new. We need to talk about that. And if you want to implement state machine, actually there are two patterns. There is an old one that I've defined 2 years ago already. It's already 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, in 2017.
Yeah.
It's the state machine pattern. But this state machine patterns does not allow you to go beyond 30 days. It just allows you to define a state machine. So recently I did define a controller pattern, which allows you to define state machine and to go beyond 30 days. So,
and that's what we're here to see today.
Okay. So if you want more information about these two patterns, you can take a look at my blog post here. So I will describe the previous pattern, the old one, and the new one.
You can find this on Serge's Twitter as well, at Serge Luca. That post will be there. It's probably an easier way to find it than try and like type that big long link.
Yeah. We will share the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, I'll link it in the description of the video.
Yeah. So now, why do we need state machine? What is a state machine? Well, actually, most workflow tools, and there are many workflow tools on the market, allow state machine. And for instance, if I take the old workflow tool that we have in .NET, which is Workflow Foundation. So in Workflow Foundation, you have a workflow engine, which is the engine which is running in SharePoint, running SharePoint workflows. And you have a designer. So in the designer, you can create two types of workflow with Workflow Foundation. You can create sequential workflow. So workflow, it's like flow that only go forward. So you cannot get backward. But in some time, you need to be able to go backward as well. This is one example in Workflow Foundation. So you open the Visual Studio Designer for Workflow Foundation, and you can design this. So you design different states. So you just focus on the business. Example here, we want to illustrate a workflow that follow a bug implementation. So a bug is created somewhere in the database, and the bug will have different states. So the workflow Foundation will start from this one. So the initial state, right?
Yep.
And when a bug is created, automatically the bug will go in another state. Let's call that bug open state. Okay, automatically.
Yep.
And then we have different possibilities. Your bug can be assigned to someone, in which case you will go to another state, which is the bug assigned state, or it can be closed because it's not really a bug. So in which case you will go to this state, bug close state. And there are specific action to be taken in this state, you see?
Sure, sure.
So let's get back here. So your bug is created, it's assigned to someone. So you are in the bug assigned state. When you are in this state, you have two possibilities. Your bug can be resolved by someone. If it's resolved, it will go into this state. It's resolved, then it will be closed. Or you can defer the bug. You want to defer that to another time. So the bug go into this state. When it's in this state, it can get back only to assigned state. You see?
Got it. Yeah, makes sense.
This is a nice business view of what's going on in your bug state, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy. Okay, so this provides some clarity, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the designer, the benefit here is what you do in the designer is also the implementation. So behind that you have code, right? So
right.
So it's very, very clear on the business point of view, I think.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's not pretty, but it's clear.
It's clear.
Yep.
Right? So when you take a look at most example in Flow, they don't need this level of sophistication because they are quite simple flow, right? So they're small flows. You ask someone to approve something, boom, you ask, the guy approve, it's done. You don't need this kind of things. But in the real world, you need this kind of thing. You need to implement, when you get into complication, you need to be able to organize your workflow, your flow in state to provide some clarity. So let's take another example.
Okay.
This is an example coming from one of my customers. So you have a user in an intranet. This user needs to create a new document, publish a document in the intranet. Before this document is visible to the public, it needs to go to different, let's call that different steps. Okay? Be validated by a first group of people that we call advisors.
Yep.
And advisor will focus just on the content, not on the style. If it's fine, then the document will be validated by a group of people called secretariat. And these people will validate the style.
What's a secretariat?
Oh, secretariat. I think that's a French word, but it's also English. That's people working in the office.
Okay.
Okay, so advisor are content expert and secretariat are people working in the office, right?
Got it.
You see, there is another English term for that in
so we have secretaries. They're like
secretaries. And
yeah, it's close. It's close.
It's
I don't know
close.
if it means the same thing. It's a similar word.
It's a similar word.
Yeah.
I did double check that on the dictionary. I think it's also English, but maybe British.
I'm gonna look it up.
Okay.
Go ahead, keep talking.
Yeah. So if these secretaries validate the style, then the whole document need to be approved by the big boss. And the big boss said it's fine, then the document can be published and can be open to the public. Okay, it's a legal document. That's a critical document, right? But that's easy to implement in Flow. It's just a loop. You test if it's okay, then we go to the next step. If it's okay, we go to the next step, etc. The problem is if the boss say, I want to reject that.
Right. So
secretariat.
This is something I've built, right? A 3-layer approval. But you're right. I always get asked, what about the reject path?
Exactly.
Right? And
the
reject path is very, very hard to do anything with in Flow.
Yeah, exactly. Rejecting is the problem. And secretaries can reject as well, advisor can reject. And even worse, the boss can say, hey, I don't want to reject for secretaries because style is okay. I want to redirect back to advisor. It's about content, not just style. You see, so this is a normal business case. It's not very complicated. It's normal. So we are supposed to be able to implement that with Flow.
And so now I will say we're getting closer with the whole BPF thing. Again, that is premium that you need, and it's not exactly what we're going to do here today. but it is something we are working on. It is, and it is something we are listening on. But I will say, it's pretty awesome that Surge has this pattern in the meantime, which is why I really want to highlight it. Because while we're working on it, I think everyone should have an answer to this issue. And so, yeah, I think this is great. I think this is great. And I just wanted to point out, BPF does do some of this, right? We do get to define states. Within those states, we get to define some owners and actions, and we can go back and forth between them as well. But now this is when we're speaking to automated flows. We have no real ability to do that. So cool. All right. Side note ended. Let's go Serge.
So basically, on the logical point of view, we can represent that like this. So we have different, let's call that states. We have advisor approval, we have secretariat approval, we have boss approval, right? Mm-hmm. And then you can say, oh, I can go from approval, advisor to secretariat to boss, and back to secretariat, back to advisor, or from boss to advisor, right?
Yep.
That's logical.
Yes.
So the thing is, how can we implement that? Well, this is the controller pattern. And in the controller pattern, we want to be able to implement state machine, but also we want to be able to have our flow running for more than 30 days.
Yes.
Okay, so that's two problems in one thing.
And you're going to solve both of them with this pattern.
I'm going to solve both of them in the pattern, right?
Good stuff. Good stuff.
And the pattern is the following. You create your flow. Let's call that a launcher flow. That's where your flow starts. And then you focus on your business logic. So you create another flow. You see, it's in green. So green means service flow. That means it's a flow, it's a nested flow. Okay, it's another flow that can be called from another one, the other one, launcher. But just focus on the business here. You create another flow, advisor, and you implement the approval logic in this thing. Don't worry about getting back, going forward. Just focus on the logic. And then do the other one, secretariat approval. Okay. Again, don't worry about going forward or going back or whatever. Do the same for boss approval. Okay. And then when this works, so you can test this flow separately if you want. When they work, then you can link them all together by creating another flow that I call the controller, approval control. Controller, you see?
It's I see
flow. It's a service flow, so that means it's a flow that starts from the request action.
And so these are all individual flows here, these green ones. And the red one is as well.
Yeah, the red one is a one. It's a flow as well. Okay. But it's not a service flow. Not a flow that starts with the request action.
Got it.
And then you say, okay, the launcher flow will start the controller, and the controller will be in charge of going from advisor to secretariat, going from secretariat to boss, or from boss to secretariat, or from secretariat to advisor, etc. So all the navigation should be handled by the controller. That's his role. Okay? So basically, the controller will start the advisor approval. So we will ask the advisor to approve your document. And when advisor will say, oh, it's approved or it rejects or something else, then this information will get back to the controller. So basically, this flow will send a message to this one. Yep. Hey, I'm done. I'm approved. Advisor have approved or advisor have rejected. Do your work. So advisor should not focus on what's next. It's up to the controller to focus on that.
Perfect.
Okay. Should be simple. Same here. So now controller knows that, hey, advisor did approve. So I can go to secretariat. I will ask secretariat to approve. And secretariat will say, oh, I've approved or I've rejected. Controller, do your work. Do the next thing. Send a message to controller. Same for the boss. So here, boss can say, oh, it's approved or it's reject. Oh, I want this to be redirected to advisor. So you send a message to this one. Okay, so we split the role. We focus on the business. by implementing these flows.
Yep.
And this one is also only in charge of the navigation between all these people, all this stage. So we can see that at a stage, another stage, another stage. You see? And this is the coordinator. I will take another example just to make sure that everybody understands this. I won't ask question. A simple scenario, which is someone create an expense in a SharePoint list and you want this expense to be approved or rejected. So I've implemented this, so I will show you how I did it. Okay, later on.
All right.
But
all right.
Let's focus on the business. Let's focus on the business thing.
Okay.
So the logic is the following. If the expense amount is greater than 500, then it's approved, automatically approved. No discussion, right? 500, then you need to go to some approval process. And the first thing is, I don't want to ask human to approve or reject because I try to automate that automatically. So I've defined a first level of approval, which is a virtual boss. I call that virtual boss. It's a machine learning, which based on your previous approval will decide if it can approve with a high probability or it cannot approve. Not enough information. So I call that virtual boss. It's a robot. So the virtual boss will say, hey, yes, okay, I can approve. It's rejected. Oh, no, I cannot approve. You see, so if the
this is the AI stuff that you built.
That's
in, right?
the AI
machine learning.
Machine learning.
Yeah.
Okay. Later on, I will give you more information about this. Okay, but let's focus on the business here. So let's say the virtual boss doesn't have enough information for approving, then you need to rely on humans. The virtual boss will say, oh, I'm going to ask the line manager to approve. If the line manager doesn't approve on time, then we'll need to escalate to the big boss.
Makes sense.
Okay. Then, if he doesn't react on time, we'll ask again and again and again and again until he reacts.
Nagging. Those are my favorite kind of flows. Nag flows.
Yes, exactly. But you will notice that the more people work with this approval system, the more information you provide to the virtual to approve automatically, right?
Right.
So the less and less you need interaction with humans. But okay, that's something else. So how can we implement this? You need a controller because you need to think in terms of state. So as we did before, you need to create a flow, a launcher flow, just to start from somewhere.
Yep.
Focus on your stages. The first stage will be, okay, I will ask the virtual boss to approve. This is logically, if the virtual boss cannot approve, I put that in gray. Can you see that in gray?
Yep, I see that very well.
So we don't implement that here. It's just for the explanation here.
Yep.
No, if the virtual boss cannot approve because he needs more information, then we'll ask the line manager to approve. So that's second stage.
Nice.
Second flow. And if there's no reaction, then we'll ask the big boss to approve.
See, now this is, I think, just to put a pin here, I think this is the future of work, right? Like, why do we need to bother the person if the machine can have enough information to do the job, right? Like, we only need to escalate and bother the human being if the machine doesn't know, right? And I just love that point. I mean, it's very obvious there, but I really think that that's the future of how so many things like this are going to go.
Yes, and I can give you an advice here, because if you work with robots, like machine learning, virtual boss, or whatever you call it, you have to be very careful, because if the robot can approve something, okay, that's fine. But don't ask the robot to reject.
Right.
Otherwise, people will not be very happy, right? So
they won't like the machine.
They won't like the machine anymore. The machine is there to approve, not to reject.
Got it. That makes sense.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Makes sense. So we have to be very careful. But anyway, so you see, we follow the same logic. So this will be individual flows. You can see that at stages. And now we need to organize the navigation between all these stages. So we follow the same logic, which is you create a controller, and then the controller will of course start the individual stage. So the first one will be the virtual boss, and then if the virtual boss say, I've approved or I've rejected, please don't use reject for the virtual boss. But anyway, or I don't know because I don't have enough information. I need more information. Then just send information to the controller. And the controller will say, okay, you don't know, I'm going to ask the line manager to do that. And then line manager can say, oh, it's approved or it's rejected, or I didn't react on time, no reaction. If there's no reaction, then we need to escalate to the big boss, right? So the controller need to do that. And the controller can say approve, reject, or no reaction. So if the big boss say doesn't react on time, you will ask the big boss again and again and again. But this will be handled by the controller, not by the stage. We focus on the business in the stages. We want to keep it simple. Again, use this pattern only if you need it. My rule is always keep your flow simple. Don't apply this pattern if you don't need it. But as you will see, that one of the benefits is that the complexity of your flow can scale, because if you have more levels, your flow will be quite simple. I mean, it's always the same logic.
So let me ask, what's the difference between this flow and the previous one now? Is that you built the controller differently?
Well, actually, yes, I built the controller differently, but it's always the same logic.
Okay.
Okay. And the thing is, you will see that since these are small flows, so when, for instance, the virtual boss approve or reject, the flow stop running.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a process that takes 1 year or several years, it will work. Because let's say you ask a line manager to approve, right? You can say that after 29 days, which is 1 day before the limitation, you get into timeout. It's no reaction. So you get back to the controller. So the controller will...
And then the controller comes to life again,
reruns, and escalate to the big boss.
Yep, and then 29 days. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful. Yeah.
There are other variants of this pattern, which is you can say this stage call this one call this one, but I don't recommend that. Otherwise, you have to focus on the logic and to the navigation as well. So
no, I like this better.
It works, but this one scale much better.
Yeah, it's obvious that it would be.
Yeah. So let's see if that works.
Okay.
Right?
Cool. Yeah, let's check it out.
Just one thing. Okay. This is a pattern. That means there are different ways to implement this pattern. Okay, the pattern is implementation free. So that means, or implementation dependent. So that means you can implement this pattern by using HTTP action. This is what I'm going to show you.
Okay.
But you can also use Azure Service Bus, send messages, or use databases, and other options as well.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not just for Flow. It could be used for any technology, including .NET, if you want.
Nice.
So here I'm going to illustrate the HTTP action, right?
All right. Demo time.
Demo time. Wow.
All right.
So
I know this is what everyone's been waiting for.
Yeah. So this is my site. So it's a site I really like because I use it as a proof of concept, and it's a real stuff that can be very complex. I won't get into the detail, but I have a very complex approval analytics on top of these flows. But let's focus on the state machine. Let's focus on the state machine here. Otherwise, I need an additional hour just to explain how the analytics works. Because the analytics allow you to analyze your business. So this is my SharePoint list, and let's say someone need to submit an expense. Let's say here I'm gonna go to, for instance, Sao Paulo, which is in Brazil, right? And you see the map here of Sao Paulo. Actually, here I've overridden the SharePoint list by using the Power Apps forms.
Okay. I was wondering how you got that all fancy.
Very nice. I mean, that's the future of SharePoint, is power-ups.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think in the future, most forms, custom forms, will be implemented with power-ups. It's so easy, so cool. I really love that. And categories, for instance, transportation, and click on save, and then an approval workflow will start. If I take a look at down below, let's move to a picture here. You will see that Sao Paulo is just here. Let's get down below here. Can you see? Oh, there's so many expense here. Sao Paulo.
Yep.
Here in progress. That means the flow is running against this expense. Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at the flows. First, this is the launcher.
Okay.
Okay, and the launcher starts when there's a new expense. And then the launcher will call a controller.
Yep.
So I will show you the controller.
Okay.
But there is something very important here. I don't want to make that too complicated here, but you need to know that since you are going to call to create, to instantiate new flows, this flow will start, will stop, etc. That they need to be linked together by a logical ID. That's why I create a logical workflow ID here. I create a variable called logical workflow, which is unique. I create a new one, and I will pass this information, logical workflow ID, to the controller.
Okay.
You see?
As
well as other information. But that is very important.
Okay.
Same for the approval, because you will create an approval, but after some time, the approval will time out. When it's time out, it's deleted completely. So you will create a new one. So
got it.
all approvals
Clever.
linked together by a logical approval. On the business point of view, it's one approval. On flow point of view, it's several approval, but logical point of view is one approval. So that's why I create the concept of logical approval. Same logic. You create a new one, and you will pass that to the controller.
Okay.
You see? You also need to specify some information, like the guy who submit the request, the item ID. You need information about the location of your expense in the list. You see? So you need to pass that to controller.
Okay.
So now I'm going to show you the controller, or maybe no, I won't show the controller. I will show you the stage first. Let's take a look at the business, the stage. And then we'll see all these stages are linked together, right?
Okay. Sounds good.
Let's keep it simple. So here are my stages. I've a first stage, which is the virtual boss. I have a second one, which is ask the line manager to approve and ask the biz boss to approve. These are my 3 stages. And I have the controller. So first you will ask the virtual boss to approve, right? That's the first stage.
Yep.
So let's take a look at this one.
Don't want to bother a human if we don't have to.
Exactly. Remember, the machine should never reject things, right? So, so it's a nested flow. That means you need to use the when an HTTP request is received trigger, right?
Yep.
And then you need to call the virtual boss. So here I call the machine learning, which is a website, a web service. I don't want to get into the details of this one.
That's fine.
Okay, but anyway, in my flow, I will check if the virtual boss is reliable. That means if it can answer with a good probability.
Okay.
It's like with cognitive service. It's a bit the same things, huh?
Got it.
Yeah.
Hot dog, not hot dog.
Hot dog, not hot dog. Exactly. So, and let's say if probability is greater than 0.80, which is high,
yep,
then I will get back to controller and I will say, hey, controller, I know, the virtual machine knows.
Okay.
Okay.
Like it knows how it wants to answer?
Knows? Yeah, knows. And
okay.
Yeah, okay. I can get into the details of this condition here. For instance, if we can check if the machine did approve, so if approve is true, then I will set the status to approve in the SharePoint list. Otherwise, I put it to reject it, right?
Okay.
That's what happened behind. But then
Right.
I will
But
set,
then the
yeah,
machine can't reject. So it says, I know what's going to happen and
e-
sends it off.
exactly. So
Got
then
it.
you get back to the controller and you say, for instance, in this case, hey, controller, you pass in the controller URL.
Yep.
I'm the virtual boss. My response is this, approve or reject it.
Yep. My
Uh,
response to this, all these items is
exactly.
here.
If you
Yep.
remember, I did work on this workflow ID, logical workflow ID. This was approval ID. This was item ID. It was requested by this guy anyway. But
Yep.
you have
Yep.
information. Do what you need to do with this stuff. I don't want to talk about this anymore, right? So,
Got it.
or you can say, hey, controller, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know. I need more information. So you
Got
just
it.
say, hey, I'm the virtual boss. I don't know. That's it. Do your
Okay.
thing. So I keep the approval logic quite easy to understand. I don't want to mess it up with navigation, thing like this.
Yep.
Okay. So now I will move to the, let's say if the machine learning, if the robot cannot approve, then you will be redirected to the line manager. So let's focus on the line manager logic.
Yep.
So same logic, HTTP request is received, and then you will try to find the line manager information, etc. You can start a discussion in team about that so that the line manager can have a discussion with procurement. You can even send a message to the line manager, a Skype message, to make sure that he will get information that he need to approve.
So let me ask you something, Serge.
Yes.
These red boxes here that you kind of have everything in, like this ask line manager to approve box, and then the find line manager. What's
Yeah.
that action called, and what is that? What's happening there? Because I know that in more advanced flows, this technique is used. In a lot of more of the beginner flows, we don't see this. So for people who are maybe first time seeing something this advanced, would you just take a second and explain what that is?
Yeah. Actually, when you create your flow can become very complicated. So if you want, when someone take a look at your flow in the first place, you need to understand what's going on. So if I read this, I can say, oh, okay, I'm getting the HTTP request. I do something here with variable, and then I ask line manager to approve. I don't have to get into the detail just to understand what the flow does. I just see that. So it's a group of action. Now, if you want to get into the detail, you click there and you will see the detail. So you can group all the things. You can hide the complexity in this building block. That's very convenient.
Yeah, and that's called a scope, right?
That's a scope, exactly. That's a scope. I
Yep.
use that all the time. And that's my recommendation. I will illustrate that because you can have scope in other scope. Example, others that work the line manager approval. First, you need to find information from your expense. You need to find your line manager. I don't want to get into the details of how I does this here. So this is in the scope. I can show you if you want, but I want to keep that simple to understand. So I
Yeah.
put that in the scope, you see?
Yep.
Okay, I start discussion in team, I send instant message, and I ask the line manager to approve. And then two things can happen. Either the line manager react on time, so we click approve or reject, or it didn't react on time. Okay. In both cases, I will get back to the controller anyway. So let's say he react on time. Let's click on the scope. You see the detail. I do some stuff. I check if the line manager did approve, if it's really approved, and I call the controller. I call the controller and I say, hey, I'm coming from the line manager state. My response is this, and that's it. I mean, it's
This
always the
is
same
awesome.
logic.
This is
It's
awesome stuff.
it looks complex, but it's actually very, very simple. You see? Now, if the line manager didn't react on time, how can we manage that in flow? So when you ask someone to approve, you can define a timeout value here. This is actually, I define that to 4 minutes. You can go up to 30 days. For the demo, I put that to 4 minutes. You see? So after 4 minutes, If the line manager didn't approve, then you will be redirected to this scope here. So you can say, hey, this thing can go if this one run into timeout. Here, configure, I think it's, yes.
Yeah, that's the run after, yep.
Run after here, and you can say, if this one has timeout, then run me. You see? And then I call the controller, and I say, hey, I'm the line manager, and I did timeout. Sorry. You see?
Perfect. It's perfect.
So you just follow the same logic, which is your flow will become very easy to understand. If I show you the big boss, I mean, it's always the same thing. Where is the big boss? Here.
Right there.
And in the previous implementation of this, it was only in one flow. So I had to use a loop.
Yeah.
Loop. So, and my flow become very messy. I mean,
yeah, no, I remember your first state machine pattern with the switch, using switch. Yeah, yeah.
So I have a switch here, but it's in the controller. You will see.
Okay.
So this is all I asked the big boss to approve. So it's a stage. We start with HTTP request is received. We do some stuff. I get information regarding the expense. I try to find information regarding the big boss. And I ask the big boss to approve. Same logic. If he does react on time, I go there. If he didn't react on time, I will just say to the controller, hey, I didn't react on time. You see? So, hey, controller, I'm the big boss. I did timeout. I mean, do your work. I don't want to know what you are going to do. Do your work.
This is a fantastic pattern. It is actually very simple. The way you have it built out, all these building blocks make it very easy.
Yeah, I think so. It can be improved, but I think if the boss reacts, approve or reject, then you can say, hey, controller, I'm the big boss. This is my response. You see?
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
That's easy, right?
So do you want to show us the controller in this video, or is that what we're going to build in the next video?
I can show you the controller.
Okay.
We will build it in the. We still have time.
Okay. All right. Let's give them a peek at the controller this time. Yeah, we still have time. We got a couple more minutes.
Okay. Okay. Let's take a look at the controller. So I wanted to just remove the complexity from the stage and put that in the controller. So the controller looks like this. It's a service flow. And of course, in the controller, you check if the amount is less than 500 euro, in which case, of course, it's approved automatically. And then complexity start.
Okay.
Okay. If you need to go to the approval process, I have a scope here, and I will describe what's this. And of course, the controller need to say, hey, it's in progress in the SharePoint list.
Yep.
And then the controller need to check where the call come from and what to do with the call. You see?
Right. Because so this way it has to identify which stage it comes from to know which stage it's going to.
Exactly, because the stage can call the controller. So the controller need to know who called it.
Yep.
Okay, and that's where the flow design need to be improved.
Yeah, so now we got to start control minus.
Yeah, and I have a recommendation for the flow team, which is to shrink that a little bit. But so the controller will check the from parameter and will say, hey, if the response comes from line manager, or if the response comes from big boss or from virtual boss, then I will analyze the response. So let's take a look at just this one to keep it simple. Okay. Let's say I have been called by the virtual boss. I will check the response. If the response is, I don't know, then the controller need to call the line manager. We call the line manager. You see?
Yep.
And we provide information regarding what we want it to be approved. And then the line manager will call the controller again. So if the information comes from the line manager, then we need to check what was the response. If it's timeout, then I need to do something. I will have to go to the virtual boss. If it's not timeout, then it's okay. It has been approved. I mean, it's fine. So if it's timeout, then I will go to the virtual boss.
Awesome.
You see, so all the navigation is concentrated in this controller.
It's amazing logic. I mean, it's crazy how what's the word I'm looking for? Very compartmentalized. You've made
Exactly.
this all. Yeah.
So the benefit is you follow this pattern. When you can create many flow like this, and you will always know exactly where you are. Are you in the controller? Are you in the stage? And there are also other benefits, which is that several people can work together on the same flow because they can focus on different parts.
Right. Totally.
Okay, so it's a way
Awesome.
to organize your work as well. So did that work? And look, I did submit that to when we talked, the flow was running, huh? So I can
That's right.
the running.
So
of
4
this-
minutes has probably passed now.
Yeah, 4 minutes. Okay. So normally the state machine controller has been invoked. Oh, my internet connection is a bit slow.
No problem.
Oh, it's maybe Flow Portal, which is slow.
Flow could be slow right now too.
Flow could be slow. Yeah. So well, actually, we start before more than 3 minutes. We start 16 minutes ago, actually.
Okay.
You see, so the controller has been invoked several times.
Yeah.
16 minutes, 15 minutes, 11 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You see?
Yep, because it's getting passed along the stages, right?
Exactly. And if I
Yeah.
take the virtual boss has been invoked 16 minutes ago. You see?
Yep.
And he did say, I don't know, because I don't have many information regarding Sao Paulo.
Got it.
You see, so he went back to control and say, I don't know. So do your work, and etc. etc. So I can take a look at the line manager. I think it's maybe in the big boss. Let's take a look at the big boss. Currently in the big boss, it can run even in 1 year. If we don't do anything in 1 year, it will still running, right? So
it's just going to keep annoying him every 29 days, right?
Exactly. But what is very important when you do something like this is that you need to log the information somewhere. And I have a container for that. I have a SharePoint list. I don't recommend you to use a SharePoint list. You should use a SQL Server table in Azure, but I will show you that I can follow the stuff in my logging list. Where is it? I don't find it anymore. Yes, it's here. Expense report, approval logs.
Okay.
And if you take a look at this one, everything is logged here.
Wow.
And let's say I want to see what's going on with Sao Paulo. It was Sao Paulo, right?
Yep.
11, we are 11, yeah. So what happened? You see, first it was an escalation. I asked Brand Cox to approve. I don't have many account here. So the big boss is also the line manager because I've only 3 users. That's my paid tenant. It's not a test
Gotcha.
tenant.
Gotcha.
I have a paid tenant because I want to be able to create tickets and when something wrong happened. But anyway, so it went to the line manager, and then it has been escalated to the big boss here. Re-escalate,
Awesome.
escalate, etc. You see, so I can follow that. When I click here, I even have a link to the flow instance. When you click here, you can follow the variable status. You can say, hey, this is what happened.
Wow, Serge making his own flow approval analytics system.
Exactly. So I did
That's
escalate
awesome.
to big boss. You see, so voila. So this is the big boss approval stage, and it did timeout. So I
am
can
impressed.
because all these flow are linked together by a logic flow instance and a logic approval as well. Even though you create some approval, they're all linked together. And when I do this, this allows me to do analytics. So you see, I can follow each expense, each approval because they're linked together. So if I take this thing, Sao Paulo is not yet visible because it refreshed every hour.
Okay.
But if I take, for instance, let's take one of them, which is, I will take Antwerp, for instance. You see, this is what happened. Antwerp, I can have details about this. The location was Antwerp. It was about transportation. Amount was 1,100. I asked Isabel to approve it. I have detail about when I asked. She didn't react on time. Then it has been escalated to the big boss, which is Brian Cox. Escalate again, escalate. So I can follow the timeline. I have a timeline. You see that
Wow.
stuff. And I can do that because all these things are linked together by logical IDs.
It's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, so you get state machine. You don't have state machine in the designer. That's true, but I mean, you have it in the implementation. You have more than 30 days. You have analytics. I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I think everyone watching this right now has their mouth wide open, like all sorts of new stuff is possible for them.
Yeah,
That's amazing, Serge.
Yeah, the thing is, when I had to implement that for a customer, when we noticed that we had to go beyond 30 days, it was a really, I mean, it was a real problem for me because they really want to go beyond 30 days. I mean, I didn't think that they would need that, but they did. So I had to find a solution. And that was the best solution. You see?
All right.
So I think in the next video, we'll see how to implement a simple example, a simple controller example from scratch. Not this one, but a simpler one. Yeah. Because we have maybe 30 minutes, something like that, right?
Yeah, I try and keep them around 30 minutes.
Okay, so I hope that, well, you will all enjoy this. And
oh man, I'm sure everybody enjoyed this. We're gonna go ahead and close up video 1 right here. Okay. Look forward to video number 2, where we build a simple state machine step by step, where you can follow along and use this too. Today, Serge, thank you so much for this. I think we all have a greater understanding now of what state machine is and what is possible in Flow, and we're all looking forward to the next video with you, man.
Thank you, John.
All right, everybody, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, go follow Serge on social media. Check the description for links to his slides, link to his blog, to his social media. Follow him, like, subscribe. See you guys in the next video. Later.